بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على النبي الأمي برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, with the fadl and the karam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has afforded us this opportunity to make mudhakara, to have a discussion on the lives of the best of people. Alhamdulillah. What greater of Allah can be better than this, than understanding the lives of those through whom deen reached us? Really, this is Allah's fadl. This is Allah's karam subhanahu wa ta'ala. We were discussing the Sahabi who was the brother of the man wedded to Hazrat Hafsa radiallahu anha. Can we remember, respected listeners? He was none other than AbduLLAH ibn Huzaafa radiallahu anhu, a Sahabi of humor. As mentioned in the books of history, وَكَانَ فِيهِ دُعَابَةٌ وَأَسَرَتْهُ الرُّومُ فِي بَعْضِ غَزَوَاتِهِ. We just discussed how Allah blessed him with the opportunity to meet the Sasanian king, the king of the Persian Empire, the superpower of the then world. And that also had a really positive effect. That became the means of countries coming onto Hidayah. Just the Sahabi conveying Allah's Nabi's message, carrying a letter with Rasulullah's invite to Islam to this king. Allah blessed him as well with another occasion, wherein he presented Islam in the court of the Roman emperor, the Byzantinian king, the ruler of Rome and Persia at that time, none other than Herakl. This happened in the 19th year after Hijrah, where Sahaba radiallahu anhum was striving far and wide, taking Allah's deen to the countries of the world. Wherever they went, they invited to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wherever they went, they liberated people. Wherever they went, they brought justice to people, kindness to people, equality to people. They established masajid. Wherever they went, people lovingly came into Islam. Wherever they went, the injustices they were facing was now solved and they were relieved of the injustices. On this occasion, Caesar, the Roman emperor, heard that the Muslims were anointed with amazing qualities. They had firm faith and iman, and they were prepared to do anything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the cause of their Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So he instructed his men that if you manage and if you happen to take any of the Muslims as captives, spare their lives and bring them to me alive, because he wanted to actually see what is this iman that the Muslims enjoy. And occasions like this happened on many times. This happened where the non-Muslims would, in shock, interrogate their people that tell us, what do you see in these Muslims? They're so ill-equipped. They're so poorly dressed as far as their standard is concerned. But how come they are so victorious? Like on this occasion, as he gives this instruction to his men, Allah willed this. Allah willed it that Hazrat AbduLLAH ibn Huzaafa radiallahu anhu be taken captive. And as he was arrested, he was tied up. He was brought to this ruler. As he stands before this powerful king of his day, this ruler then stares at him and says that I have an offer to make to you. So Hazrat Abdullah asks, what is it? He says, I present to you Christianity. And hear me you, that if you do accept it, number one, I'll release you, I will honor you. And this great Sahabi, with honor, resilience, and conviction, refuses totally. He says, إِنَّ الْمَوْتَ لَا حَبُّ إِلَيَّ أَلْفَ مَرَّةٍ مِمَّا تَدْعُونِي إِلَيْهِ. I rather die 1,000 times than accept your offer. Qaisar says, I see that you're really a resilient man, wise and intelligent. But if you accept my offer, I'll even make you my partner in my authority. What that means is, I will give you a great partnership, half of my kingdom. The Sahabi smiles as he was tied in his fetters and shackles. And he says, Wallahi law a'taytani jami'a ma tamlik. By Allah, were you to give me your entire kingdom and the entire kingdom of Arabia, all of that which the Arabs own. So not only your kingdom, the entire Roman emperor, the entire dynasty that you rule, and everything the Arabs own, for me to denounce Allah's deen for a blink of an eyelid, I am not prepared to do so. لو أعطيتني جميع ما تملك وجميع ما ملكته العرب على أن أرجع عن دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم طرفة عين ما فعلت. Your entire kingdom, the entire kingdom of Arabia, for me to denounce my deen, I am not prepared to do it at all. One of the meanings here is that طرفة عين, for me to denounce my deen even for a split second, for the time it takes to blink the eye and then return to my deen, for that short span of time, I would never denounce my deen. So one meaning here is, I'm not prepared to do so at all. And طرفة عين is an expression of emphasis, that never whatsoever. And the other meaning here is, even if I were to denounce my deen for a blink of an eyelid, and then acquire all that you are prepared to offer me, even for that split second, I would not be able to do so. But why would this Sahabi say this? Denounce Islam for that short span of time, and then come back and acquire so much? Allahu Akbar. Sahabar radiallahu anhum's consciousness of Allah and their preparation for the hereafter was so profound that their worry was that we can die and leave this world at any moment. Respected lovers of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, let's learn from Sahaba radiallahu anhum that we have to worry about our iman every moment, every second, every day. We have to conscientize ourselves, and we have to remain conscious of the fact that iman is compulsory 24/7. Every moment, we don't know at which second we will be passing away. We don't know the condition in which we're going to leave this world. That's why we have to ask Allah to help us that we leave this world with iman. May Allah help us live with iman. May Allah bless us with death upon iman and for iman. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His grace and mercy resurrect us with perfect iman. May Allah grant us Jannatul Firdaus through His rahmah and mercy. The king then says to him, in that case, I will have to assassinate you. He says, this is your prerogative. You may do what you wish. He instructs that the Sahabi is then hung. And then he says to his archers and his marksmen, shoot at him. But he whispers to them in their language of Roman dialect, shoot him near his hands, not directly upon his body, near his hands, that to instill fear into him. And if he gets shot, it doesn't claim his life. And as this was happening, he continues to present Christianity to him. He wanted him to forsake his iman, and the Sahabi totally refused, even more resiliently. Then he instructs his men, shoot him near his feet, and he offers him again. And at that time, he says, hold on, get him off the crucifix. And he calls for a huge quadrant, a huge deg, a huge pot. And oil was poured in, and it was heated to its maximum. And then he calls for two other Muslim captives who were in the prison. And as one of them were thrown into this huge pot, his flesh disintegrated. His flesh tore apart, crumbling, burning right in front of the Sahabi radiallahu anhu's eyes. He's just flesh, that's bone that's left. And he passes away in this pitiable state. He passes away in Allah's way. Then he turns to AbduLLAH again, and he makes the offer towards Christianity. And even this time, Hazrat AbduLLAH turned him away totally, without softening even to the least bit. When this ruler knew that this Sahabi will never forsake his iman, he then gives an instruction, escort him to this cauldron and throw him into this huge pot and let him die a suffering, painful death. And as the Sahabi was being escorted, Allahu Akbar, tears started flowing from his eyes. In shock, his capturers then mention in their language to the Roman emperor that this is what had happened. So he instructs that the Sahabi be brought back. And now, as he stands before the ruler and he offers him Christianity, he says, would you now accept? He says, never. I told you before, I will never forsake my iman. He says, woe to you. What is wrong with you? Why do you cry then? Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. What makes the Sahabi cry? He says, Abkani anni qultu fi nafsi. He says, what made me cry was the fact that I spoke to my heart and I said in myself that now you'll be casted in this huge pot in Allah's way and you'll be thrown here and definitely your life will go. Then I'm thinking to myself, to give my life for Allah is so special, but one life for my Allah is too little. وَقَدْ كُنْتُ أَشْتَهِي, I always had this wish, أَن يَكُونَ لِي بعدد ما في جسدي من شعر أنفس فتلقى كلها في سبيل الله. He says, I wanted equivalent to the hair strands on my body. Every hair strand stand for one life. And I wanted one after the other, my every life be given and sacrificed in the path of Allah and thrown in this pot for Allah's sake, for Allah's pleasure, one after the other. To give one life for my Allah is too little. This Roman emperor, Caesar, was shocked, was dumbstruck, was dumbfounded. He had never seen something like this. An encounter with a Sahabi, radiallahu anhu, an encounter where a Sahabi is not prepared to accept any offer to forsake his Iman. He tried luring him with lust and desire, and now he tried threatening him with a painful, pitiable death. No matter what the challenge, Sahaba never forsaken their Iman. This is a lesson for us, my respected lovers of Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum. Let's guard our Iman. And this is priority. This is priority. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed us after years of this challenge in our country where we hadn't had the opportunity of ijtima. Now we have this opportunity right at our doorstep. Near the markaz, the ijtima is taking place this weekend. Every one of us should be part and parcel. Why? Because we're worried about our Iman. How are we going to die? Are we going to be able to leave this world with Iman? Many of the pious would cry profusely. And when asked, why do you cry? Don't you know Allah is most merciful? He would say, what is my guarantee that I would leave this world with Iman? And as the hadith states, Allah's Nabi advises us, كَمَا تَحْيَوْنَ تَمُوتُونَ, as you live this life, that's how you're going to die. We have to live worried about our Iman so that we can die with Iman. We can't just live our lives frivolously behind our whims and passions and desires, making our desires our deity. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. How do we know that we made our desires our deity? When we prioritize everything else besides Allah. When we make everything else priority, and Allah's order and Allah's deen subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah's command and Allah's obedience secondary. When we do it just when it's convenient for us, when we do it when we feel like, when we do it just to give us a feel, and we're not doing it for Allah's sake and for Allah's pleasure, and we have forgotten that we made for this, we created for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like we learn in the report that the whole world is made for you, O humanity, but Allah made you for Allah. You are for Allah. الدنيا خلقت لكم وأنتم خلقتم للآخرة. We've forgotten that this is the goal and the purpose and the objective for which we live. That is why we have to be part and parcel of this ijtima, part and parcel of the environment of deen. In the time of Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum, people were brought into the environment. People were brought in the environment, and the environment has an impact. A non-Muslim brought into Masjid al-Nabawi for 3 days became a great Sahabi. He had assassinated Sahaba. Here he sees the deen, he sees dawah taking place, a'mal taking place, Allah's dhikr taking place, khidmah taking place, ibadah taking place. That inspired him. After 3 days when he was released and he was sent away, he was shocked that the feeling of being in the masjid is very special. He made ghusl and he returned reciting the shahada. He became Hazrat Thumama bin Uthal radiyallahu anhu. When Hazrat Mus'ab bin Umair radiyallahu anhu was striving and spending 1 year in Allah's way, from the 12th year Dhul Hijjah till the 13th year Dhul Hijjah, Allah's Nabi sent him with AbduLLAH ibn Maktoum radiallahu anhuma to strive in Allah's way and to teach Allah's deen and invite to Allah Ta'ala in Medina Munawwara. As they were inviting to Allah Ta'ala there, 2 prominent rulers and leaders of the area got wind, got to know about what was happening. in the area that this ta'aleem is taking place and this gush, this inviting to Allah is taking place. So Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, a prominent man from that area, who wasn't a Muslim yet at that time, he sends Usayd ibn Hudayr, another prominent ruler of the area, saying, go and assess the situation and then chase these people away. What are they doing in our vicinity, in our community, in our area? As Usayd ibn Hudayr approaches the gathering, and as this halaqah of ta'aleem, this environment of deen, this learning and teaching, iman and the commands of Allah is taking place, he then comes into the gathering and he abruptly, arrogantly, flamboyantly addresses Hazrat Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu, saying to him that what do you all think you all are doing in our community and our area? Who allowed you all to do such a thing? Get away from us. Otherwise, if you delay and you continue doing what you are doing, you'll have no life left. In kanat lakuma binafsaykuma min haja. If you want to live, then get out from here. Hazrat Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu politely, with respect and kindness, teaches us the reaction of a da'i, that it is that of softness and politeness, and a da'i does not retaliate. Even if his honor is attacked, his response should be polite, loving, respectful. Even if someone strips him of his title, he does not remove the title of that individual. Look at the response of Hazrat Mus'ab radiallahu anhu. He says to Usayd ibn Hudayr, Ya Sayyida Qawmihi, O respected leader, we have one offer and one request, that you hear us out, because you haven't heard our message before. Hear us out. If you like what you hear, you're welcome to join. And if not, we will depart and we'll carry on with our efforts to the other areas. We'll carry on in the other areas even before you reprimand us the next time. Even before you prohibit us the next time, we will go. Allahu Akbar. Hazrat Mus'ab radiallahu anhu didn't say, if you don't like it, we're going to stop. No, a da'i does not stop. Allah's Nabi's Sunnah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, he said, even if you were to kill me and sever my head, I will still invite to Allah. Even if you were to put the sun in my right and the moon in my left, meaning give me every privilege, or threaten me in whichever way possible, no matter what, whilst I'm dying, I'll still be inviting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the teacher of Hazrat Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu. Allah's Nabi's mizaj is this, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to invite, so not to stop. He says, we'll continue, we'll go to the other areas. But look at the good-heartedness. Look at the purity, the pure-heartedness of the people of Medina Munawwara. He says, what you're saying is fair, is just. He sits, propping his shaft into the ground, his spear. And as he was in this environment of learning and teaching, Allahu Akbar, this Mubarak work is drawn from Sahaba's life. This work of bringing people into the environment, bringing people back into deen. So many Muslims are losing their iman because of us not attending masjid, because of us neglecting masjid, because of us. The first step to irtidad is disconnecting from the house of Allah. Then doubts come about, and then we start doubting the commands of Allah. We start doubting our iman, and we start questioning certain things that are Allah's commands and Allah's injunctions. We trying to think we more intelligent than Allah's deen. Allahu Akbar. And the first step to us losing our iman, or our children, or our women folk, was us not connecting to masjid. That is why this ijtima is an opportunity. Invite our friends, invite our associates, offer to pick them up. Those who haven't been to the masjid in long period, in months, let's offer them. Come with me. People are looking for love. Bring them into that environment. Inshallah, the iman will be strengthened through your efforts. Make that call. Meet that individual, or make a call to him. Offer him that you would pick him up and bring him into that environment. And that environment is self-explanatory, as we learn from the lives of Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. Few minutes later, Hazrat Usayd ibn Hudayr was so touched and inspired. He says, what do I do to become like you? They teach him the kalima. They show him cleanliness, wudu, and cleanliness. He was salah. He was prepared to read the kalima. He recites the kalima. Then he once again joins in the halaqah of ta'aleem, the ring, the circle of ta'aleem. And after some time, his mind is working. His mind is worried that I have this truth. How can I keep it to myself? This is Sahaba's mizaj. As soon as they came into Islam, instantaneously they were da'i. Instantaneously they invited to Allah from day one. He says, I'm sending someone to you who's most senior in this area. You work on him. Now he leaves that gathering, and his worry now is how to get his partner, this leader, to the gathering. So he goes to Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, and Sa'd ibn Mu'adh sees the appearance of Usayd ibn Hudayr rather changed. He sees Noor. He already sees that difference in his appearance. Allahu Akbar. Just one attendance of the halaqah of Iman. Already the change was known and the change was apparent. And then now Usayd ibn Hudayr is trying to convince him to go there. He doesn't know much yet. He just embraced Islam. He became that great Sahabi in Sahih Bukhari. When he would read the Quran Kareem, the Malaika would come down from the skies and listen to him like lanterns and lamps hanging from the skies. That's how close the Malaika would come to listen to his tilawah. Allah's Nabi said, "O Abu Yahya, that was the Malaika of Allah listening to your Quran. If you just carried on, everyone would have seen the Malaika of Allah." But he got worried because that beautiful lights, those celestial lights were so apparent that even the horse got scared in the veranda and they almost jumped onto his son that was sleeping right there where he was making the tilawah of the Quran Kareem. So he became such a great Sahabi radiallahu anhu. But yeah, he just embraced Islam. So he's trying to convince Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. He says, Sa'd, I couldn't solve the issue of sending them away. You rather go there and sort it out for yourself. And his intention is just to get Hazrat Sa'd ibn Mu'adh to the gathering. And this is what it is. Bring one person to the environment of Iman and A'mal. That's why Allah gave us this opportunity. Allah gave us this chance where a brother is welcomed with a smile. His ikram is made. He's made to feel comfortable. And he sees, Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, in the last week in the Ijtima there in Shaka's Kraal, how many brothers came there into that environment and they were shocked. Islam is such a beautiful deen because they're Muslim for some time. But when you see the effort of Iman and when you see that environment of deen, it makes an amazing difference to one's Iman. And one tastes the sweetness of Iman because Iman has the taste. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ذَاقَ طَعْمَ الْإِيمان, indicating to the taste of Iman. So bring these individuals, bring one person. Allah will give hidayah. Now Sa'd ibn Mu'adh rushes to this gathering and he's trying to send them away. And as he arrives there, again, he starts attacking Hazrat Mus'ab ibn Umair verbally, insulting him, reprimanding him, saying, how dare you do your own things in our area? What do you all think you all are doing here? Get lost and get away before we end your lives. Allahu Akbar. The da'i catches it on so many occasions. But this is why a da'i is so special to Allah. Because he does Allah's Nabi's work. This is Anbiya's work, alayhi salawatu wassalam. Every Nabi of Allah did this. This is why the da'i is so special. Allah make us all da'i. Allah accept us all to do da'wat. Anbiya alayhi wassalam's work. And our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam's work. And the work of the ummah of our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Hazrat Mus'ab ibn Umair then addresses him saying, O respected leader, one request we have, hear us out. If you agree, you join. And if not, we will go to the next area and we'll continue with our efforts elsewhere. He says, what you say is fair. And he participates and he sits. And after a few minutes, he was inspired. He says, I want to be like you. He recited the kalima. They taught him the basics. He now, as he sits once again in this environment of Iman, in the halaqah of ta'aleem, his heart was so touched. But he knows, I can't keep this to myself. These are Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, through whom you and I are Muslim. وَلَوْلَاهُمُ مَا كَانَ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْلِمُونَ وَلَوْلَا أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّبِيِّ وَحِزْبِهِ وَلَوْلَاهُمُ مَا كَانَ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْلِمُونَ وَلَوْلَاهُمُ كَانَتْ ظَلَامًا بِأَهْلِهَا وَلَكِنْ مَصَابِيحُهَا وَنُجُومُهَا هُمُ. So after some time he says, I'm going to my people. And he goes and he gathers his entire community. And he now asks them, can you all introduce me? They say, you are our leader. You are loved by us. You are the one most respectable in this entire society. He says, in that case, if you hold me in such high regard, I have chosen what is best for you. I want you all to look into this beautiful deen and come into Islam. They said, if you say it's correct, we all will be part and parcel. And every last one of them came into Islam and recited the kalima, the first of whom was his mother, Hazrat Kabsha, radiyallahu ta'ala anha. We learn from here the prominence we enjoy, the status we have does not belong to us. It is the mercy of Allah. It is the kindness of Allah that Allah has given us respect, that people look up to us, that people love us, that we have companies, for example, or we have position, or we have status. This is Allah's blessing and Allah's test. Will we be like Sahaba to utilize the respect people have for us to inspire them positively, to guide them to Allah and to save them from Jahannam? Will we do so, or will we fail the test by just using that respect, thinking it's a self-earned thing and thinking that it's just there as a convenience and not realizing that it is an amana and it is a trust and a test for us to use it correctly like Sahaba did by channeling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and saving them from Jahannam. So as Hazrat AbduLLAH was returned to this ruler and he asks him, are you now prepared to give in to my offer and accept Christianity as your faith? He says, never. He says, why then do you cry? He says, I thought to myself that my one life will be presented in the court of Allah, that it was sacrificed for Allah's deen. But to give my one life, that is so insignificant for my merciful, kind, my most great Allah, my Allah who is so great beyond what I can ever fathom. To give one life for my Allah is too little. So I was wishing and hoping that for every hair strand that's on my body, I be given a life, and I be given that life to sacrifice my every life, one after the other, in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. Ye hai Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum. This ruler was riveted. He then thought for a moment. He says to the Sahabi, okay, there is another offer. Allah softened his heart because every condition comes from Allah. Allah is the helper. Like how, as we're reading Surah Al-Kahf today, the youngsters of Al-Kahf, as they were threatened by the ruler and they were forced to forsake Islam, they stood up. إِذْ قَامُوا فَقَالُوا رَبُّنَا. They said to the ruler, they gave him dawat. They said to him, our Rabb is the Rabb of the heavens and the earth. We will never forsake our deen. We will never ascribe partners unto our Allah. He was prepared to assassinate them, but Allah softened his heart and he released them for the night. And then they escaped to protect their iman. So Allah made it happen. So this ruler says to him, okay, another option I give you. Just give me one kiss on my head and I will release you. So Hazrat AbduLLAH asked, only me or all my brothers who are captives in your prisons? So he had seen so many Muslims captives in the Christian dungeons. He says, okay, I'll release them as well. So Hazrat AbduLLAH thinks in his heart momentarily that yes, this tyrannical ruler, but if I were to kiss him and I then bring this benefit to the Muslims, so many Muslims would get liberated. What's the harm in that? So rather I do this. And he wisely, subhanallah, look how wise, he actually kissed the Christian king on the head. And he said that what's the harm in that? That so much of good will come out of it. And then the ruler then instructs that all the Sahaba be handed over. Those that were being tortured in the dungeons of the Romans, they were liberated and handed over to AbduLLAH ibn Huzaafa radiyallahu anhu. When these Sahaba radiyallahu anhum returned to Medina Munawwara and the report back, the Karguzari was presented to Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu. Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu was elated by this. He was pleased by this. Allahu Akbar. Allah forgive us, beloved brothers, respected elders, respected lovers of Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. We look at some negativity and we harp on that. That no, how can he kiss a non-Muslim's head? But what about the good that came from there? What about the good that emanated from such a situation? Understand the situation also before we cause friction. See the wisdom also. Allah give us tawfiq to help this ummah of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and not fragment the ummah more. Hazrat Umar was elated. And on hearing this Karguzari, Hazrat Umar says that حَقٌّ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ أَن يُقَبِّلَ رَأْسَ عَبْدِ اللَّهِ بْنِ حُذَافَةَ وَأَنَا أَبْدَأُ بِذَلِكَ. Now it's the duty of every Muslim to kiss the forehead of Hazrat Abdullah ibn Hudhafa radiallahu anhu. And I will start. And Hazrat Umar, Amirul Mu'mineen, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu gets up and kisses the head of Hazrat Abdullah bin Hudhafa radiallahu anhu for his wit and wisdom and for his strong iman and for such a karguzari he brings forth that so many Muslims' lives were saved. And all the Sahaba after that were coming by him and kissing his forehead. But Hazrat Abdullah radiallahu anhu was known for his humor. So Ibn al-Athir rahimahullah mentions in his Ustul Ghaba, that approximately there were 80 who were liberated with him. So he gives a number. And then he also mentions that in the humor of Abdullah ibn Hudhafa radiallahu anhu, others would also try and be humorous with him. And sometimes they would try and pick on him and say, yeah, you kissed, that non-Muslim king's head and so forth. They would pick on him. So sometimes you get certain people, they only want to, pick on others and they want to give but they don't want to take. Actually, when you can give, you must also manage to take. So Hazrat Abdullah radiallahu anhu would still be light-hearted with them because you'll always get those who will say what they want to say. But we must know how to handle every situation. Amongst the ahadith Hazrat Abdullah radiallahu anhu narrate, the many ahadith that Sahabar radiallahu anhu would share with the ummah, is one interesting hadith wherein it was on the occasion of Hajj, and Allah's Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam sent an announcer to announce that these days of tashriq are days of ayyamu aklin wa shurb. These are days of eating and drinking, meaning enjoying Allah's bounties and favors after sacrificing for Allah Ta'ala in the Hajj. But interesting in this hadith is the student of Hazrat Abdullah bin Hudhafa radiallahu anhu. His student here is a great scholar, a great tabi'i by the name of Sulaiman ibn Yasar rahimahullah. He was actually a slave of Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha, and some reports mention Maymuna radiallahu anha. And then he became a mukatab and he paid his freedom and spending time in the company of Sahabar radiallahu anhum. So these were men who came from non-Muslim countries. They came into Medina Munawwara. They were treated so well as Muslims. They bought their way towards freedom and he became one of the greatest scholars of Islam. Sulaiman ibn Yasar and his brother Ata ibn Yasar rahimahullah. They narrate so many ahadith. He spent his entire life teaching the ahadith of Rasulullah ﷺ after he learned these ahadith from the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. So he in this hadith is the student of Hazrat Abdullah bin Hudhafa radiallahu anhu. And he is one of the greatest fuqaha of Medina towards in the first century after Sahaba radiallahu anhum. فَخُذْهُمْ عُبَيْدُ اللَّهِ عُرْوَةُ قَاسِمٌ سَعِيدٌ أَبُو بَكْرٍ سُلَيْمَانُ خَارِجَةٌ. Some even say that he is even higher in grading than Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab rahimahullah, who's one of the greatest tabi'een and one of the most scholarly, who was the son-in-law of Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Something interesting about this student also of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, Hazrat Sulaiman ibn Yasar, that he was really handsome. And his beauty was impeccable. On one occasion he was traveling with his students en route to Hajj. He was on his way for Hajj. And they halted at a point near Abu'a and they camped there. So his students had gone to the market for some errands and he was left alone in the tent that was prepared for them on their halt there. And as he was in the tent, busy with his work, there was a woman from the local area coming in there who lived in that area not far. And she comes in. So he sees the solitary woman coming in. She was clad in hijab. And he asks her what's her need. She then unveils herself. And the report says that her face was like as though it was filqatu qamar, a portion of the moon, meaning she was extremely beautiful. So he then thinks to himself that maybe she has a need. She's, in trouble. Why would she do such a thing? So he rushes to the Dastarkhan. Whatever food was there, he presents it to her. She says, no, this is not what I want. I want from you what a man does with his lawful wife. مَا يَفْعَلُهُ الرَّجُلُ بِأَهْلِهِ. And in this, he's shocked. He's in seclusion. She's offering herself to him, but it's haram. He now cries. He says, Allah, this is my situation. Allah, help me. And his tears were so incessant. He then places his eyes in his palms and he cries and he cries. And now she got worried. What happened here? She then covers herself, her face, and then she departs from there. After some time, when his students return, they see, because of the incessant tears, his eyes were red and he was very emotional. So they ask him, Hazrat, what happened? So he didn't respond at first, but a student very close to him insisted. So he said, no, this is what happened. And so forth. That student started to cry. He says, why do you cry then? He says, what would we have done, or I have done, if I were in such a situation? Allahu Akbar. Then he continues on this journey of Hajj. And after his Umrah, his Tawaf and so forth, he is in the Hijr. He is in the semicircle, the Hijr of Ismail alayhi salam, which is part and parcel of the Kaaba. This is in accordance to the hadith of Rasulullahﷺ. Allah's wisdom why this portion stayed outside the Kaaba. The Arabs didn't connect it because of them using the reason that the money that was licit was complete. But Allah's Nabi said that this was Allah Ta'ala's wisdom. At least someone ordinary who wants to get into the Kaaba and they wouldn't allow can enter this section of the Kaaba and will be as though he's inside the Kaaba. As he was making muraqabah in this section. And he dozes off. And in his sleep, he sees this beautiful dream of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And he says, oh Nabi of Allah, oh Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, the incident of the Quran and the narrative where you and Zulaykha, that incident is really astonishing and amazing. Oh Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. So Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam says, and your incident with the woman in Abwa is also very astonishing as well. So this was actually a bashara for him, that how he protected his iman. May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq also to protect and preserve our iman from all sorts of sins and wrongs. May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala enable us to learn and study the beautiful lives of Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And may Allah help us to live by the legacy they left behind. Allah give us tawfiq. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil ummi bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin.